Hey, Ohio, with mobile sports betting now live, we know that it can be a bit overwhelming deciding on which sports book to use. That's why we wanted to tell you about BetQL. BetQL is your one stop for all things sports betting related, from betting analytic trends to expert picks. Head on over to BetQL or the app or to betql.com to get informed. Get your betting win streak started. Use code OH25 for 25% off your first month. That's betql.com/news/923 the fan for those exclusive sportsbook offers.
He's Daryl Ryder. I'm Andy Baskin. Daryl, we talked about this going into the first game of the season against Cincinnati, how healthy the Browns are. Though they lose Jack Conklin in the first game, we don't know what's up with Juan Thornhill. We may a little bit later this week. What is the health of this team right now? How are you feeling about that?
Oh, they're in great shape. As you alluded to, losing Jack Conklin's a big blow. They really like Dawand Jones a lot. Fourth-round pick out of Ohio State has come a long way since rookie minicamp. But let's be honest about it. The dude needed a bucket between every rep that he took to now where, he was awesome in the preseason. I think he allowed one single pressure in all his preseason snaps. Went back and kind of zeroed in on him as I was looking at the All-22. And I'll be honest with you, I thought he played pretty well against Cincinnati. So you certainly can understand why the Browns feel pretty good about Dawand Jones taking over there for Jack Conklin. Obviously, you miss some of the veteran experience there, but I think that they'll be in pretty good shape there. And hopefully the offensive line is able to continue to remain healthy. But as far as the rest of the team goes, Juan Thornhill, we'll see where he's at this week. But otherwise, they came out of the game pretty clean. Jed Wills, we'll keep an eye on him. Wouldn't shock me if he is limited on Thursday. By the way, the schedule this week for the Browns, you're probably listening to this on a Thursday. Thursday is their Wednesday practice. Friday will be the Thursday practice day. And then Saturday is the typical Friday. The team will travel to Pittsburgh on Sunday. And then, of course, play the Steelers Monday night. But Jed Wills will be someone I think keep a little bit of an eye on this week. He had x-rays, kind of hobbled into the x-ray room last week with a couple of trainers. Kevin Stefanski told us on Monday that Jed is fine. There's no issue there. We'll find out if, in fact, that's true. But again, would not be surprised to see him pop up on the injury report as limited this week. But otherwise, they're in good shape.
Let's talk about the Steelers here for a second, Daryl. The injuries that they are coming into this thing. Talk that Cam Hayward, I should say, is out. Deontay Johnson looks like he's going to be out with a hamstring. Pat Freiermuth, their big tight end, got hurt last week. And DeMarvin Leal's also out. He's got a tricep injury. At least he was out heading into this week. All talk is that for sure Cam Hayward and Deontay Johnson will be out. How big is that as far as the Browns are concerned?
Oh, from the Browns' perspective, it obviously helps them tremendously because Cam is always a pain in the to try and slow up, right? Every time he plays the Browns, he seems to put together his Hall of Fame reel for whatever reason. Obviously you're never rooting for anyone to get hurt for any team, but I would say those injuries certainly favor the Browns without question. And the fact that the Steelers are coming off of the type of beating that they had to endure 30-7 to San Francisco, who many, yours truly, have picked to get back to the Super Bowl this year. I think that it's going to be Philadelphia and San Francisco fighting for that NFC title. But yeah, the contrast between those teams and where they're at, Andy, night and day, right? 49ers are a contender. My prediction about the Steelers finishing in last place in this division is looking pretty good right now because they look like the worst team in this division. Not by a mile. They looked awful. Now, I expect them to bring it Monday night against the Browns, but I don't know that their best shot is going to be enough to take down the Browns.
Gerald, going back to their game against San Francisco, Kenny Pickett, 31 of 46, 232 yards, 2 interceptions. Najee Harris on the ground, 6 carries, 31 yards, averaged about 5.2. And then Allen Robinson led them, 5 receptions, 64 yards, 12.8 was his average. And Deontay Johnson, we just said, looks like he'll be out this week. 3 receptions, 48 yards, 16 was his average. Looking at those numbers, and knowing what the Browns defense did last week to Cincinnati, I would think, man, I feel pretty good about the Browns this week.
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers were only able to score 7 points last week against San Francisco. They absolutely got carved up on the ground by Christian McCaffrey, including a 66-yard touchdown run in which he just basically ran by everybody, which doesn't happen against the Steelers all that often. Those are things
could happen 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, absolutely it could, especially with Nick Chubb, going for the Browns. I will say this, though. TJ Watt looked like a defensive player of the year. He looked really good. He had 3 sacks. He had all 3 of the Steelers' sacks last week. So he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. My thoughts and prayers go out to Dawand Jones having to deal with him, as well as Jedrick Wills, because I'm sure they're going to ping him back and forth between both of those tackles. But when you look at like this, just the statistical analysis, right? And you look at some of the numbers the Steelers put up last week, it's hard to believe they only scored 7 points. Their numbers weren't all that terrible. They weren't great, but they weren't terrible. But they were held to like less than 240 yards of total offense by San Francisco. Defensively, they gave up nearly 400 yards in total offense. That is great news for Deshaun Watson and the Browns offense. The fact that they got gashed in that fashion. They gave up nearly 200 yards rushing, which is, again, not what we're used to seeing from a Pittsburgh Steeler defense. So I really feel like a pretty significant opportunity is knocking for the Browns to start 2-0, not only for the first time since 1993, but they can go 2-0 within the division for the first time since let's see how good you are. When's the last time the Browns were 2-0 within the AFC North? And I'm going to give you a hint.
In the AFC North?
Yep, that they started 2-0 within the division. I'll give you a hint. You don't have to go back more than a decade.
I'm stumped. I'm just trying to think. I'm trying. It's got to be Brian Hoyer, right?
No, 2019.
Oh, it wasn't that long ago.
And the two teams they beat, the Steelers and the Ravens.
Again, you're talking about just the North itself, right? Because they only
Correct.
have 3 opening games.
That is correct. Within 2-0 within the division. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of. I started thinking about the AFC Central there for a second. I was going so far back. I was like, no, you got to keep going back forward on that. Deshaun Watson, Daryl, we talked about him on the radio today. You and I did. What does he need to do to impress you this week?
He needs to make the plays that are there to be made. Hopefully the weather forecast holds up in Pittsburgh and it's dry. I did not like the way he played in the nasty weather. He's got to be better than that. Again, in his defense, Joe Burrow was just pretty god-awful, but then again, Joe Burrow had to go against the Browns defense. So there's that balance. But I feel like Deshaun, there just has to come a point where we have the Deshaun game. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like I feel like we're still waiting for that game. We're waiting for the $230 million quarterback to show up. We've not seen it yet. And I'm anxiously awaiting that, like where he just absolutely just tar and feathers a defense, not only with his throws, but also with his legs. Now, we saw a little bit of the legs against the Bengals, right? He had Cincinnati on skates on the 13-yard touchdown run earlier. He, was able to scramble and convert a third and long into a first down, but I'm waiting for the Deshaun Watson game. I really am. We haven't seen it yet. And, it would be nice if Monday night was that night where he throws for 300 plus yards and 3 touchdowns. And, the Browns offense looks as explosive as we think it can be on paper. I will say this, those missed opportunities that we're lamenting from the Bengals game because of the heavy football, because of the rain, because of timing, whatever the reasons that were involved there, I feel like the positive side of that coin is that those opportunities were there, and in good playing conditions, Deshaun's going to cash those in and be able to complete those passes, put points on the scoreboard, capitalize on those explosive opportunities. But yeah, I'm waiting for the Deshaun game. I really am. He got a mulligan last year for the 6 games there, even though that was all self-inflicted, why he couldn't play in the first place. And then now we had the weather is a mitigating circumstance. So hopefully, again, weather won't be a factor in Pittsburgh, and he just goes up and he just goes out there and just lights the Steelers on fire.
He's Daryl Ryder. I'm Andy Baskin. A new look Cleveland Browns. What are we talking about? That's next on It's Always Game Day in Cleveland.